Hello, welcome back to Client Stories with DNAngels. My name is Heidi, and I'm a volunteer genetic genealogist with DNAngels. It's been a minute since I've done a client story, so I've had one in the back of my brain for quite a bit of time now. I actually looked today and I began my client, Kate, which is a fictitious name. I began her case December of 2024. I immediately liked her so much that I was waiting to give my client's story until she had a better outcome because I just wasn't happy with the way she was being treated by her biological family. So I call this case the Candyman, and I know that my client Kate loves and watches our channel. So when she sees this, she's going to know why it's called the Candyman. And let's support Kate by leaving a piece of candy in the comments, something a little bit different than what we normally do. So, to give you a little bit of backstory on Kate, she is very much into genealogy, not only on her own family, but she was doing it to help others as well. She showed me a picture of her office, and she had binders and binders and binders. She even became a member of the Daughters of American Revolution. It's a big deal. Like, she's really into genealogy. Well, in 2014, to help her with her genealogy research, she did a test with 23andMe, and she also tested her mother and father. Unfortunately, her father did not come back as a match to her, and she was devastated. She was so devastated that she just closed the book on genealogy altogether, put up her binder, shut the door to the office, and just left it alone. And then she decided to go ahead and test with Ancestry. So she did that recently. In fact, in the day that she signed up with us is the day that she got back her ancestry results. She was really upset when she got back her ancestry results because she was able to figure out that one of her brothers was also an NPE and had a different father. She was on the kitchen floor. She was on the kitchen floor crying, knowing that now not only is she an NPE, but her brother is as well. So she comes to me, and actually, I decided to work her case a little bit differently. Usually, I explain to the client what I'm doing behind the scenes. I do my thing, and then I, at one time, will give the client their results. And with her, because I knew that she loved genealogy and because she was so fragile, I played an experiment with her. I decided that I was going to include her on my research. So I was talking to her throughout the whole time. Each time I made a discovery, I let her know. I told her when I was working her case what I was looking for. So, we sort the matches into DNA networks. And I said, okay, I've got two lines. I've got a blue line and I've got a green line. And I'm looking for these two lines to merge. So I'm talking to her throughout the whole time. And she seems excited. I mean, she's like, oh, well, this is so cool. I know a lot about genealogy, but not about the genetic aspect of it. So it was not a difficult case. I had a great aunt match on her ancestry, and then she'd also tested that 23andMe, like I said. So I said, let me sign into your 23andMe account, see what's over there. Well, there was a half niece match over there with a very common name. Not able to like look her up and find her on public records, but I knew if I built out the tree far enough that I should eventually bump into her. So I find the grandparents, and the grandparents have two sons. And when I went to do a deep dive on those two sons, remember, I'm looking for one of them to have a granddaughter that has the same name as the match on 23andMe. Took some digging, but I finally found her. So I was able to tell her which one of the brothers was her father. We were able to narrow it down to one, and I'm going to call him Daniel. I noticed when I was looking at Daniel's background reports that him and Kate lived in the same city. So sometimes I like to do the Google driving directions to see just how close they were. 3 miles apart. Her and her biological father lived 3 miles apart. I showed that to Kate, and Kate said, we drive by his house all the time. So we thought that was pretty cool. Well, it was getting late. I said, it was getting really late. It was 9 o'clock. It was my bedtime. And I said, let's pick back up on this tomorrow. We'll make a plan. And so by the time I got up in the morning, she had messaged me through the night, and her best friend had done some sleuthing, and they found her biological father, Dan's uh, Facebook page. She showed it to her husband. Her and her husband worked together at the same company for years. Although her biological father had retired from the factory, I don't know if it was a factory, but the company that they both worked for, he came back every month because he filled the vending machines with candy. So everybody knew him as the Candyman in the company, which how cool is that? So I said, well, Kate, you have a perfect way in. Your husband knows him, personally. Plus, her husband said, don't you remember that time we were at Lowe's and we ran into that man I work with and I introduced you to him? Well, that was Dan. She had actually met her biological father before, just didn't know it. So this is where we have to become patient, though, because Kate's husband, really wanted to do this in person. So my client Kate had drafted the perfect letter. She had me review it. We did some little tweaking to it. It was great. Her husband took the letter to work, and somebody said, "Oh, the Candyman was just here. You just missed him." So we're having to wait another month for him because he only comes once a month to fill the vending machines. And so I'm trying to be really patient, but I'm like, oh, can't he just like drive by after work? You know where he lives, but it's not my place. So finally, her husband gets a hold of Dan. Dan the Candyman. I didn't even plan that. His name's not really Dan. But anyway, so she got a hold of Dan and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you. Can we meet for coffee? And they did. And so her husband explained to him the situation and said, my wife is your biological daughter. She wrote you a letter. I don't want you to read it now. You can take it home and read it in privacy. And Dan said, during that time of my life, I'm really not that surprised because his father had died and his girlfriend had broken up with him and he just went off the rails. He was doing a lot of drinking, a lot of partying, and just, really went off the rails. So whatever happened during that time period didn't surprise him at all. So he said, life's short. I'd like to meet her. I wish she was here with you now. I would like to talk to her. But I need to go home and I need to talk to my wife. But at least let Kate know that I'm interested in meeting her. So that was great news, right? Well, then the wives always have to get involved and ruin it. Kidding, not kidding. So it takes a while for Kate to get a hold of Dan again. But Dan does come back, I want to say like a week later, and his wife is requesting a paternity test to be sure, which is fair. So Dan says, I'll come by your house and I'll swab your cheek and, we'll send off. He doesn't want to do the commercial DNA test. He wants to do like a private lab DNA test. So Kate says, no, I'll meet you at the lab. She just, the chain of custody thing, she wanted to be everything to be perfect. So she met him at the lab. They did the cheek swab. Funny story, true story. I'm on a cruise ship in the casino, maybe gambling, probably on a slot machine. And I get a message from Kate and she says, we just took the paternity test. I'm scared to death. I'm shaking. What if it's not right? Like, I don't know what to do. And, I had to assure her, like, this was a slam dunk case. We're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Promise. The test comes back very quickly. It usually takes about 5 to 7 days. I want to say the name of the company was called Fast Labs. And I was thinking to myself, they weren't lying because it took like 2 or 3 days for her to get the results back. And he is 99.9999% the father. This is where I think, okay, finally I can do a client story because I like her so much and we've got confirmation and everything is great. Except Dan tells my client Kate that him and his wife has decided to put the DNA test, the paternity results, and the letter that Kate had written him in a safe. They weren't going to, so Dan has 2 daughters. They weren't going to tell his daughters, and that the daughters would find out after they passed away and gone through the safe. I'm really upset when I hear that. Of course, Kate is too. I'm really upset. The first thing I could think of when I heard that was, nobody puts baby in a corner. Like, nobody puts baby in a safe. And it just really made her feel like a dirty secret, which she has every right to know her biological truth. She is the innocent one in here. You're probably wondering about mom. So mom is still alive, and Kate was really nervous about approaching mom with this because she said that her mom can be difficult, and if something doesn't fit her narrative or makes her look bad, that she will, not be nice about it. So once she got back the confirmation that Dan was her father, she invited her mother over, and she told her mother what happened. And her mother said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that this has happened to you. You don't deserve this. And I did not know. And nothing I can say is going to make this okay for you. But I'm really sorry. And the whole time, Kate's thinking, like, who stole my mother? Like, this is not what I was expecting. But just having her give her that reassurance, and she's forgiven her mother. Mother's 84 years old, and she only mother she has, and so she's forgiven her mother. But she also, it really helped that her mom didn't go in the path that she thought she was going to go in. And then when mom found out that they were putting her in a safe for no one to find out, we're all upset. We're all upset. And so I'm still checking in time to time with Kate. And finally, she messages me and she says, so her brother almost died. He was in the hospital, and she takes care of him anyway. She was in the hospital with him for 8 days, 12-hour days. And she decided during that 8 days that she is not going to be anybody's dirty little secret. So she calls Dan and says, this is how I feel. I have a right to know my sisters. And I'm, she said it in a nice way, but she's like, I don't need anything from you, but I need to be validated, and I need to know that my sisters get a chance to know me as well. So he thought about it, and she messaged me not too long ago, and she said, Heidi, I got a phone call from Dan. She calls him Mr. His name isn't Dan. She calls him Mr. Dan. I find that funny that she doesn't call him by bio dad. She calls him Mr. Dan. And she's like, I had a message from Mr. Dan today. And to quote, he said, you're going to meet your sisters. I'm going to tell your sisters about you. It would be so much more damaging if your sisters found out about you after him and his wife are passed, and they have questions and no one to go through for answers, which is, basically, if he did that, he's taking the cowardly way out. So I'm so glad to see that he did stand up. He figured out what the right thing to do is. And so now she's able to have a relationship with her sisters, and everything has come full circle. I really, really enjoyed working this case. It took a while to get there, but finally everything in the end worked out. She's a lovely, lovely, lovely person. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to put the candies down in the comments, like and subscribe. And if you're watching and you are an NPE yourself, a non-parent expected, and have taken that DNA test, don't know what to do with the results, reach out to us at DNAngels. That's DNAngels.org. Goodbye, everybody.